welcome everyone to part 3 of A Heart Full of Dandelions. This is the final part. I'm kind of sad that this series is coming to an end. I always am when the series is ending. However, if you want me to, I will of course do a supercut of this one, including bonus material. I have already a couple of ideas in mind, including a little, let's just say, prequel to the whole Haikyuu disaster. What was going on there. I hope you're excited for that. And now, if you liked today's video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It would really help me out a lot. And let's go! Kenma stayed absent from practice, and school for that matter, for the rest of the week. Kuro made it exactly one day without him, by which he meant that he showed up on his doorstep the first day after Haikyuu had sent him home. Kenma should be thrilled about that. It was a clear display of how much he cared about him, but Kuro always was like that. There was no guarantee it was because his feelings were in any way, shape or form of a romantic nature. And in the eyes of the sudden and painful coughing fit it caused, Kenma wasn't too thrilled. He told his mother to send him away when she asked, regretting it a second after as the pain intensified and he coughed up an almost complete dandelion blossom. The yellow flower lay mockingly in his hand, sprinkled in red. It was odd that even after being tormented by the tenacious plant, he still considered it pretty. He kept it, placed it on his nightstand next to the new collection of empty teacups. He had long made a decision, but building up the courage to go through with it took a lot longer than he thought. Part of him wanted to stretch this out as long as possible, but he knew that he neither had the time nor patience for that. He wanted to see Kuro again. Kenma? Hello? Someone there? The ginger pulled him out of his thoughts, waving to the camera in an attempt to gain his attention. They had been in a Discord call for almost an hour now, in which Kenma masterfully brought the topic always back to Hinata not to talk about himself. Whenever the spiker would get close to pick up on his avoidance of talking about his own life, he simply had to drop Kageyama's name and would be safe for the next 20 minutes. Or so he thought. Something in Hinata's gaze told him he wouldn't get away so easily this time. You are distracted. He pouted, though Kenma recognized with mild horror the concern in his friend's voice. He didn't like people being concerned for him. Concerned people asked questions he didn't want to answer. I'm sorry. Continue. I'll listen. Hinata narrowed his eyes at him, and instead of picking up where he had left off, leaned back and observed him calmly. Calm by Hinata standards, meaning fidgeting with something in the background or tapping his foot along with his growing impatience. What is going on? Nothing. Kenma, Tsuki already calls me stupid all the time, not you too. I didn't say that. You said it with your actions. He looked at him accusingly, and yet there was concern in his eyes. Kenma took a deep breath. Perhaps he could help him. How did you confess to them? Tsukishima, I don't like him. You called him Tsuki before. Yams, I mean, Yamaguchi must have rubbed off on me. He calls him that all the time. So, you spend a lot of time with them. Kenma, you're not being fair. It brought a small smile to his face, seeing Hinata's face get dusted and pink and him visibly struggling to fight the accusations. Though it made him falter too. Hanahaki could also be caused if the affected person thought their love was unrequited. Perhaps he read the signs wrong, but if Hinata liked them, he couldn't let him fall into the same trap he found himself in. If you like them, You should confess. Well, what is all this talk about confessions? Really, what is going on? The ginger seemed more and more exasperated with him, yet determined to help. I think I like Kuro. He didn't think, he knew he liked him. The scratching in his throat reminded him painfully of that as he barely managed to get the name out past the swiftly flourishing flowers. Oh, Kenma, that's great! No, it's not. Kuro never showed any signs he liked Kenma back. This would quite literally be his end. Stupid sickness causing a stupid teenage crush he shouldn't have to be lethal. So, you want to confess to him? He nodded slowly. He had no choice after all, and to be honest, it didn't even sound so bad. Kenma always preferred a more direct approach, at least when it came to communication. He didn't like hidden messages or hypothetical scenarios. This way, he'd get a clear answer, even if it would end up painful. The fact that he hesitated was out of the ordinary. His knees felt weak and he had to admit he feared the pain that a rejection would inevitably cause. So what's the problem? I expected you to simply go up to him and, tell him. Yeah, he expected that too. I guess. I'm nervous. I don't think you have to be. He clearly likes you. Sure, but not like that. At least he would let him down gently, though he wasn't sure that mattered, judging by how tight his throat had gotten. He coughed and quickly leaned to the side so that he was outside of what the camera caught and Hinata wouldn't see the flower petals. He sure hoped the ginger didn't know what they meant, but he didn't want him to find out either way. Are you okay? Yeah, his voice broke. It was strained and raspy and he had to fight to breathe. All this talk and thinking about Kuro wasn't good for him. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to keep you from resting. It's fine. Kenma, just rest for now, and don't think too much on what ifs. Get better, confess, and you'll see all will be fine. He looked at him in disbelief, but nodded. Sure, why not? It's not like he had a bunch of options to choose from. The only problem, this would hardly get better until he managed to get it over with. He took a deep breath and almost immediately was thrown into another coughing fit. With a bit of effort, he said goodbye to Hinata, who wished him well, and got off the call. He tried to pull himself together tomorrow and attend practice, and then he'd see what happened. Upon entering the gym, he almost immediately regretted it. It wasn't the flowers, the pain of which had died down to a small ache. It was the team. He appeared just as they were about to warm up and was immediately swarmed. They teased him and smiled, assuring themselves of his well-being, which on the surface level was nice, but he hated being the center of attention. It had the added effect, though, that between Tora attempting to hug him and Kenma having to dodge him creatively, Kuro hardly got the chance to greet him before the coach called for order. From the corner of his eye, he could see the toddler throwing unsure glances at him. Kenma wasn't sure what, but something about him had changed. He didn't get the chance, however, to look more closely, because the second he laid eyes on him, his throat filled with the traitorous flowers. He managed to hide his cough. However, when he looked up again, his gaze was caught by Haikyuu, and he knew the Liberate noticed. He warned him how dangerous it was for Kenma to be here while the flowers were still spreading, but here he was, without a plan or whatsoever. The last week had barely brought him any clarity aside from grin and bear it. He'd just have to go through with it. Perhaps it would have been smarter to try and catch Kuro before practice, but it wasn't like Kenma had put a lot of thought into this like he usually would. Every time he tried, he ended up coughing on the floor, ensuring that it got progressively worse. While researching the sickness, he had found some poetic takes on how it forces you to move on one way or another, instead of dwelling on what could never be and wasting your life away. But considering it left no room for thought to actually resolve this, he had to disagree. As such, he found himself on the floor again before the practice had even really started, earning worried glances from his team, who visibly tried and failed to come up with something to help him. He saw Haikyuu making his way over again, but Kuro was already by his side, and he shook his head at the libero to signal it was alright. He didn't have to interfere. Kenma, do you need water? Kuro tried to keep his voice level and calm, but failed completely. He was worried for him, and Kenma clung to that as he signaled him to go outside. He tried, but didn't manage to rasp out the words fresh air. However, Kuro understood, and swiftly helped him to his feet and guided him to the gym door. Outside, Kenma immediately freed himself from Kuro's arms, and instead used the wall for support as he coughed his lungs out. Petals fell from his mouth in what shouldn't have been a graceful act, yet it was. The floor was covered in yellow, sprinkled with spots of red. They felt heavy with the liquid. Kenma, are you alright? What is happening? What do you need? He got more and more distressed the longer Kenma's coughing fit lasted, and walked around him quickly. When he saw the petals, his eyes widened, and something akin to fear and hurt reflected in them. Ivanahake, why didn't you tell me? There was pain in his voice, but as if shaking it off, he straightened his back and his expression grew softer again, although a certain urgency remained. Kenma, this is serious. If it's already that bad, it's best to call an ambulance. I won't let you die because of some jerk who doesn't even realize how amazing you are. Kenma shook his head. He would have laughed in madness if he had enough air to do so at Kuro calling himself a jerk. Why not? Who's your flower giver? Who could be worth this? You were worth it. You always were. For you, I'd endure discomfort simply because it made you smile. It's not Chibi-chan, is it? He shook his head as finally a completely blossomed dandelion fell from his mouth, and for just a moment he could breathe a bit better again. Then who? He stopped himself mid-sentence. Kenma didn't even have to say anything. He simply offered him the yellow blossom and watched as his eyes widened and he attempted to process what Kenma meant by it. You're saying that's not... It can't be... It's not me, is it? But Kenma nodded, feeling his throat closing again. Even without the flowers, he probably wouldn't have trusted his voice in that moment, though the silence that followed certainly didn't make it better. It was like fertilizer for the flowers, and soon Kenma couldn't hold back another coughing fit. Immediately, Kuro rushed over to him and held him while patting his back again. I'm sorry. It's okay. He tried to say it, but couldn't. It was okay. He never thought Kuro would like him back. This was his fault. At least that he needed to tell him somehow. Kuro. I'm here, kitten. I'm here. I'm overwhelmed, that's all, but I like you too. I do. I really do. What? Sorry that I hesitated. I didn't thought it was me. I was preparing for the worst. I thought I had lost your heart to someone else. Slowly, bit by bit, Breathing got easier as Kenma watched him closely and saw no lie in those big brown eyes. He was overwhelmed as the realization settled in. A smile tugged at the corners of his lips, and for a moment all was good, before he managed to answer, however, another coughing fit tore through his body. Kuro let out a choked sound as he reached for him. The blood staining Kenma's lips tasted bitter, like iron and copper, but mixed earthy taste of dandelions. He struggled, fought to breathe, and black dots started to dance in his vision. It hurt. The pain spread like vines from his chest throughout his whole body. It hurt. It ached. He couldn't breathe. He was powerless against the coughs tearing through him, the petals claiming his throat and mouth. Had he been too late? Had he hesitated too long? Slowly, it was as if he separated from the sensation. It all faded into the background and appeared as though he almost looked at it from afar, an outsider, a spectator to what must be his own death. Kuro held him tightly, tight enough that hadn't the flowers already done the job, it would have been suffocating. He cried. It's been a long time since Kenma saw Kuro cry like this. Honest sorrow left his lips in the form of sobs, small whispers that lost more and more of his voice, begging him to believe him, but Kenma did. Kenma did believe him. He didn't dare hope before, but the moment Kuro said it, he believed him. He knew Kuro too well to think it a lie. Kuro liked him, loved him even, both platonically and romantically, and Kenma was happy, although it appeared he wouldn't be able to share this happiness with him. There was anger sparking in his chest. Had he really gone through all of this just to still die, when it turned out he had been wrong? He cursed the gods, he cursed fate, and silently, while fighting for air, he screamed his anger into the void. Seeing Kuro so devastated and panicking made him want to destroy the reason for his sorrow. If he could, he'd alter the world, time, and reality itself to give Kuro the happiness he deserved. And then, it was over. A large dandelion blossom, larger than its wild counterparts, fell from his lips, along with a small tangle of roots that was attached almost directly to the blossom in an unnatural way. And suddenly, there was air. He could breathe. Kenma drew in a short breath, coughing again, but this time only droplets of blood stemming from his battered throat, and a few leftover petals fell out. It was over. He could breathe. For a moment, disbelief still took hold of his mind, until he noticed that other than him, Kuro hadn't realized what had happened yet. Of course, it was over, but the flowers had still been in his lungs. His body needed to rid itself of the lethal blossoms. He assumed it would still take a couple of days till it would heal properly, perhaps a few more petals as well, but the root had been removed. Kuro. He tried saying his name, but all that came out was a painful, scratchy sound. It hurt, and he grimaced as the pain tore through his throat. Of course, the plant had rooted itself into his flesh. It was sure to leave wounds. That's where the blood stemmed from. Kenma sat up slightly instead, having to fight against Kuro's grip. As soon as he managed to free his arms, he took hold of the toller's face and made him look at him. His hold was firm and determined, all the more when he saw the tears falling from his eyes. Kenma. Again, the sound was painful and almost illegible. Kuro stared at him in worry and clearly not understanding. Kenma took his hand and swiftly placed it on his chest before breathing in deeply, letting his lungs expand. Slowly, understanding dawned on Kuro's face, his eyes glancing at the large, yellow flower taking root on the ground beside them. Are you feeling better? His voice was full of distress, but Kenma simply nodded and tried for a smile again. It's over. He nodded again when suddenly more tears spilled from his eyes. Confusion coined Kenma's expression as he saw it, but before he could demand answers, Kuro had already wrapped him in his arms again. Thank goodness. I love you, Kenma. Please, never scare me like that again. And suddenly, Kenma's voice was gone. This time not due to the wounds to rendering his throat useless, but taken by his own tears as the reality of the situation crashed down on him. He reciprocated the hug, silently returning the sentiment. I love you too, Kuro. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Hopefully you liked this series. If you did, don't forget to leave a like because it would really help this channel out, and tell me your opinions in the comments. And if you want more content like this, subscribe. Also, aside from your favorite quote, definitely tell me that one in the comments. But aside from that, tell me, do you want a bonus part about Haikyuu and who his secret flower giver has been, and how Kenma and Kuro continue after all of this? If so, tell me in the comments. Special thanks as always goes out to my nerdy neckos who help support this channel so much and make a lot of this a lot easier for me. Here are my other social media, though more importantly, check out the Discord in the channel description. It's a bunch of amazing people you can meet there. And check out more videos like this here. Now I hope you have a wonderful and amazing day.
Grow hard about what you want to be. Step 4. Everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be